Yo, welcome back to Christ First Channel. And I want to start a new series. I want to start a new series talking about movie parables. I'm calling it movie parables. And basically, I'm going to just break down either movie scenes or just full movies and, use it as an analogy with our walk and, with Christ, our walk, in this Christian lifestyle, right? So if you have any movies that you want me to review or watch or to try to make into an analogy or just correlate to the Bible, just let me know in the comments. And yeah, just subscribe for some more because this is the first time I'm making this right here. So, the first movie we're going to start with is Spider Man. Spider Man 3. Spider Man 3 is a movie about Venom. When Venom is basically introduced into MCU, Spider Verse, all that. We are now introduced to Venom. Now, the one scene I really want to break down is the scene where Spider Man has finally got his Venom suit and when he gets this Venom symbiote to come on him, he ends up feeling himself, and he has more confidence. Things are just different, right? But the only issue is he had less control, if that made sense. It was changing him. He was becoming less of a hero and more of a villain, more selfish. Really, he just was becoming more selfish, and he realized this symbiote wasn't good, but it was actually harming him. Even though it brought him more strength and it made him feel better and it made him feel more confident, brought more women around. I mean, just everything. Even though it did all of that, it still had a bad effect on him. And see, what's funny is that he comes to a point where he has to decide, like, and obviously they don't make it obvious throughout the movie, but he has to decide whether to stay the hero that he is or to keep this symbiote, which is turning him less into a hero and more into a villain. So he ends up making the choice to get rid of this thing, right? And as he gets rid of this symbiote that was really harming him more than, pushing him to be better and more than, benefiting him, he goes and, he figures out its weakness is loud noise and fires. And when he figures that out, he goes into the city bell and the bell tower, and he goes to the bell tower. It's at not the city bell, but it's like at a church. And what's funny is I'm not going to be talking about Eddie because if I brought Eddie, and that would be a whole another thing in itself. But when he goes up there, he's basically trying to fight this thing off. And matter of fact, I skipped something. He actually didn't know about the sound being its weakness until after the fact. So as he's trying to take this thing off, it's just not working. Like it's strapped on him, and he's doing the best he can to take this off with his own power, but it's just overpowering him. It's constantly growing back. Each one he rips off, it just replaces that spot, and it comes back stronger. It makes itself stronger. So then while he's trying to take it off, he bumps into the bell, and when he bumps into the bell, he realizes how the symbiote is getting weaker. So he notices the symbiote's weakness. Once he notices that, he starts using the bell to his advantage to take this thing off of him, because this thing is not benefiting him. It is actually, making his life worse. So he hits it off the bell, and it is a fight. It is a big struggle to get this thing off of him. Because, see, Spider Man is not an ordinary man. Like, he has superhuman strength, and he is struggling to take this thing off of himself. And the thing about it is, it's almost as if he's really fighting himself. But as he's taking this thing off and he's wrestling with this, he finally gets it off of him after he hits it off the bell enough and, really gets in there and rips it all off. He's finally back to that hero form, to the person that he really was, that true hero, that person that, with great power comes great responsibility, the person that follows that quote. Like, he became that once he removed the venom, right, the symbiote. So where this comes in with the Bible, see, we have this as well as people. Our flesh is something that is almost like the symbiote. We're living this life, but our flesh desires things that are against God. And most of the time, man, when they go through troubles, like how Peter was realizing, hey, this thing isn't helping me be any better, it's not benefiting me, they tried to go and do it themselves. So like when Peter went to take it off, when he went to take it off with all his power, it wasn't working. And see, what happened is after that, he goes and he tries to fight off himself. He's like literally struggling here. After this, he realizes that, this is going to be more of a fight than he thought. And as he hits against the bell, that was the very thing that was going to help him deliver him from this parasite, right? And that's the same with us in our flesh. We try to do these things in human ways of trying to remove these bad feelings like sadness and all these other emotions that come from following the flesh, these things that come from death, these fruits that come from death and what Satan wants. And see, we can never do it, but once we find God, it's almost like when Peter Parker bumped into the bell. Now we have something that can divide us from our flesh. Because see, that bell was the only way he was able to divide the symbiote from him to get it off. And see, once we come to Christ, that's what it does. His word does that. And I have two verses to back that up. The first verse being Hebrews 4:12-13 says, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." Now, see, what is crazy about this, and I'm sorry, this was all just verse 12. But what's crazy about it is it's saying it's sharper than any double-edged sword. So see, the flesh, we can't get this thing off with our own power. We can't just take these wants and desires that are coming from us and to just control it ourselves. No, we can't. We need something opposing that, right? And see, what's funny is what God allows us to see is, the one reason why Peter was able to take it off, the one thing that helped Peter get this thing off of him was noticing it by its weakness, noticing it by what it couldn't, what it wasn't strong in. So attacking it by its weakness was allowing him to take it off. So for us, God helps us be aware of our weaknesses, especially in the flesh. And because of that, now we're strong enough to, walk away from it, die to our flesh, and to submit to his will instead of our own. And see, the bell was almost cutting that off of him. Like the sound alone was cutting the symbiote off of him. Just like how the word of God cuts our will from his will. It shows that it differentiates the will of our own and the will of God, because the will of God will align to that word and the will of our own will go away from it. It will stray away from it. Second verse is Romans 8:7. The mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. So we understand that we only take the flesh away, or we can only die to our flesh when we come to Christ. And what's funny is the flesh is hostile to God. So just like how Peter Parker was a hero, the Venom symbiote was hostile to who Peter was. See, our flesh is hostile to who we are, where we come from, which is God. And see, because of that, that's the reason why we have to get away from this. That's the reason why we have to die to ourselves. That's the reason why we have to submit to God. That's the reason why we have to run to him and not entertain the flesh, not entertain it. Because the flesh is in a hostile position towards God. It's hostile towards God. It doesn't want to do anything that he says. So see, there's a way we were made, and our flesh is trying to lead us away from that, trying to do it in its own way, because doing it in its own way, drives you away from God's way, right? And so you can see how during this fight was a true wrestle, just like how being a Christian, it's a true wrestle, dying to yourself. I mean, some days it just feels so hard because it's like, man, I don't want to give this up. I don't want to die to this. I don't want to stop doing this habit. I don't want to stop thinking this way. I don't want to stop acting this way. And these are the things that help us differ from people from the world and those that are of God, because those that choose God are of God, because they know that the flesh is of the world, and anything that's of the world hates God, and God hates it as well. So see, we have to understand that we have to fight our flesh in this battle. And see, once the flesh was off of Peter, he got to become that hero again, just like how I was saying. So once we are able to die to our flesh, and it's a daily battle, but the times where we die to it and we deny it, that's when the change comes around the corner. That's when God brings those blessings. That's when you become more and more like he was calling you to be, through this lifelong cycle of dying to ourselves, just for at the end goal of death to finally be one with him. So that was it for today. That was it for the movie Parables. This is the first one I got, and there's going to be a lot more after, because I am excited to do this. So yeah, hopefully this helps somebody, and I'll see you guys next time.